moving from one country to another, or even from one city to another within a country, requires enormous amounts of adjustments. And preparation is a key fundamental factor when it comes to adjustment, so that you are able to adjust quickly and properly in the new environment. In this video, I want to share with you the top 8 factors that you can and you should expect when you move to Moncton. Hello everyone, this is Raisa and welcome to my channel, The Quest for Wealth. The first factor we will talk about is accommodation. When it comes to accommodation, apartment buildings tend to be the most popular ones. You can rent a duplex or a triplex as well, or townhouses, but they are not easy to go by, and therefore apartment buildings has become the more available option for everyone. I remember back 3 years ago when I landed here, apartment buildings were not so many during the time, but over the years, in just a span of 3 years, all this building has been popping up every now and then, and therefore there are more options for renters to choose from. The most popular name when it comes to accommodation here or renting is Kilang Properties. Kilang Properties tend to have, I'd say, newer kinds of buildings or apartments. There are private individuals who would rent their properties as well. Could be a triplex or a fourplex, but normally, as I have experienced and I have seen, these private individuals who would rent out their properties normally would be the older kinds of buildings. And when I say older, gee, they're really old. It means not younger than 30 years old. These are buildings that are 50 years old to 100 years old. And normally, when a building is over 50 years old, you will find that the floor of these buildings are not level. So it's as if when you walk, it's as if you are facing an earthquake all the time, or every time. So Kilang Properties tend to have newer kinds of apartments. They are absolutely present in different parts of Moncton and Greater Moncton area. When I say Greater Moncton area, that includes Moncton, Dieppe, and Riverview. I will link their website here below, and you can choose for yourselves. For rent that are from private individuals, it could vary from 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom. It could be between $600 and $900. But if you rent from Kilang Properties, it could be from $900 to $1,300 for a 1 bed and 3 bedroom. Now, normally when it comes to rent, water is included in the rent. Electricity and internet are plus on the cost. The internet would cost normally between $50, $60 to $80. That's the internet, and for the heating, it could be pretty much the same. For a 1 bed or 2 bed, it could be between $60 and $80 per month on average, 12-month period. So yeah, so that's essentially it. So if you are a family of 3 or even a family of 4, you can have a 2-bedroom. From my side, I actually recommend renting an apartment building, because when you rent an apartment building, you don't have to worry about snow removal. You don't have to worry about higher cost on electricity, because if you rent a semi-detached or a triplex or a duplex, you have to work, or you have to pay for the snow removal, and the cost on electricity or heating is more, because it's normally an up and down or a ground floor and a basement, and therefore there will be more consumption on heating. The second factor you have to prepare for is transportation, of course. The Greater Moncton area, and when I say Greater Moncton area, that's Moncton, Riverview, and Dieppe. These areas or these cities are, I'd say, relatively linked properly by a bus system called the Kodiak Transpo, and I will link their description here below. And Kodiak Transpo essentially has got this pass system wherein you pay a certain amount and you can get in and out of their bus however you want, however many times you want in a day, in a month, in a week. For an adult, if I remember correctly, because I used to have it, it was $67 per adult, and for children, it could be between $57, $55 per child. Now, you can use this pass system anyhow you want. If you want, you can just spend the entire day hopping in and out of the system, or hopping in and out of the bus, and just go around the entire city and just have a look. And yeah, it will cost you only that much. Now, for mobility and actual mobility, you have to have a driver's license, and New Brunswick requires anyone to have a New Brunswick driver's license. Even if you were from any other provinces in Canada and you moved to New Brunswick, you would have to transfer your driver's license to New Brunswick. Now, if you moved from another country to here, you have to have an exam, a written exam, and then you have to have the actual exam, driving exam, and then from if you pass those two exams, then you get your New Brunswick driver's license. And vehicle is a must. It's an absolute necessity because if you will just rely on the transportation through Kodiak bus, you are very restricted and very limited, extremely limited when it comes to transportation. And there are various things you can see here. There are various places you can go to. The province is beautiful. Having a vehicle is absolutely necessary, most especially if you have got children. Now, the third factor, which I'd say is very important and fundamental for parents, is education for their children. Even if parents are under work permit or student permit, either one of the parents is under work permit or student permit, the children or the child is eligible for education for free as long as you are a resident or a permanent resident or a Canadian citizen. The education here in Canada is primarily a right. It is a human right. It is not a privilege. So it doesn't matter if you have, financial means to send your children to school. It doesn't matter. Your child is eligible to study and have a good quality kind of education. Now, that's for primary and secondary. Then college or university is a different story somehow. It is not for free, but there are various provincial and federal programs wherein the child can apply for, and there are various grants or help from, or assistance, I'd say assistance from the government, wherein the person has got the opportunity to finish a certain degree assisted by the government financially, and therefore it can be paid later on when the person starts working, or it can be a grant as well. It truly depends. There are various programs, and I will link those descriptions. More important factor to consider or to expect when you move to Moncton is childcare. Childcare is not cheap. It is quite expensive here in the whole of Canada, and most definitely here in New Brunswick. Nevertheless, the government has got a program wherein the allowance per child is $563 if the child is below 6 years old, and $475 for ages 6 to 17 years old. So when the child reaches the age of 18, that's it, nada, it finished. The child allowance is done. And normally, really, when children reach, or when people reach the age of 18 here, normally the children have got the authority to decide for themselves whether they will stay with their parents or they move on to trudge their own path in life. Fifth factor you can expect, or you should expect when you move here, is employment support. There's twofold kinds of employment support. There's the employment insurance, and there is CERB, or the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. These two are very different. Now, the employment insurance essentially is a kind of insurance which is paid for by every individual who works, and that amount, or that insurance premium, is taken from the salary every single time that there is a pay, and that is essentially an insurance by the person, so that whenever a person loses his or her job, then there is an insurance to it, and the person can apply for that support. But not everyone who loses their job or quits their job are eligible. There are various limitations and restrictions to it. If you just quit your job or lost your job because of your own fault, for example, you were not cooperative, or you just quit your job because you were lazy, you just want to have and drink beer every day, and there is no eligible reason to it, then you will not receive any employment insurance benefit. The eligible reasons for you to have the EI are essentially if you were depressed, or you were highly anxious, you have mental distress, physical restrictions, mental restrictions, or even if you had to care for a family member. Those could potentially qualify you to have the benefit, or receive the benefit of employment insurance. Now, the Canada Emergency Response Benefit was created to essentially as an income replacement program. So those people who lost their job because of the pandemic are essentially qualified to have this. So when the person was laid off, or the company went bankrupt, or the company went 6 feet under, so these are the results of the pandemic, and therefore the person who lost their job because of the pandemic are immediately qualified to have the CERB. Now, for people who have just landed or just freshly landed in the province, you are not immediately qualified for employment insurance or even CERB, because what happens is that you will have to work first for a year at the minimum in order for you to be qualified for CERB or EI when you lose your job. So you have to have a job first, and of course pay your taxes first, and then if and when you lose your job, not because of your own fault, then you are qualified for EI or CERB. New Brunswick places a high regard when it comes to human asset, and therefore training, professional development, skills development is important or fundamental when it comes to the various programs of the province. And therefore, the sixth factor that you can expect when you move to Moncton is training and skills development or professional development. Now, the province have got various programs when it comes to professional development. It is essentially, the idea is that it is identified by the government, or that in order for a person to be employable, that person needs to undergo education, further education, and skill development. Therefore, if that need is identified and verified by the government, then the person is eligible for grant. And when you say grant, it is a certain amount of money that is granted to the applicant, and the applicant does not have to pay for this financial grant. It could range from 5,000, 10,000, 15 to 20,000 for a person. It truly depends on the kind of program that has been verified to be necessary for this applicant to develop and thrive in the industry that he or she is into. I will link in the description below the website where you can click it and read it up and truly understand for yourselves what are the limitations, requirements, restrictions, and eligibility when it comes to professional skills development. Work-life balance is the number 7 important factor to expect when you move to New Brunswick or in Moncton. Natural resources are ever present here in the province. Falls, rivers, greeneries, beautiful places, parks. The 8th important factor when you move to Moncton that you have to consider is taxation. Of course, you have to definitely give a piece of your pie to the government. That's how the government runs its business here. But then I've already made a video about taxation here in the province. If you want to know more about that, I will link that description here below. Click it and watch it, and you will have a better understanding how taxation works here. Nevertheless, to provide you a little bit of an idea about how taxation works here, for example, if your income is at 50,000, for example, income tax would be right around between 8,000 and 9,000. That's 8,600 something, 8,600, 8,700 dollars for an income of 50,000. If your income goes up 10,000, if your income is 60,000, and then your tax would go up as well to a tremendous amount of $12,000 dollars, and it is quite a huge pickup there. It's plus 4,000 or 3,000 really, and the federal tax is higher normally than provincial tax. So there you go. Those are the top 8 things. That's right? Yeah, top 8 things to consider and prepare for, and what to expect when you move to Moncton, New Brunswick. I hope you like it. Please share, like, comment.